Professor Jayant Mahajan brings over 20 years of industry experience and 7 years of academic expertise in business management. He has recently completed his mission of cycling around India's borders, advocating for climate action through Change Before Climate Change, a call to action for humanity to adapt and respond to the climate crisis proactively.
So recently, I wrote this article, If Nature Isn't on the Balance Sheet, Economics, Growth is a Lie. That's the evils of a consumer-driven economy. I always wondered, right now I am working as a business management professor, and whenever I walked in my classes, everything centers around ROI, return on investments, how to make profits. And at a point, I started questioning, where are these profits coming from? And is it what I see in my bank statement or on the assets side of my balance sheet? Is that the only thing which is my profit, or there's something more to it? So, in fact, the LinkedIn article which I recently wrote is there in the chat. I just shared the link with you. And I wanted to see where are these profits coming from and at what cost. So this is our beautiful Earth, which it's an Earth rise from Moon, and this is something that we want to protect. This is a beautiful fragile layer of our climate which protects us. So to understand this better, I set up on a cycle across the India. So this is a small video from one of the Bhutan borders in Assam. This is somewhere in Darjeeling. I met different kinds of people, different people from different walks of life. So why did I take up this journey? It was for a simple cause of change before climate change. That was a cause for which I was cycling for. We, as human beings, we have to change before the climate changes for worst. So this was a journey of about 20,000 kilometers. I started at this point of India, which is for the people who are familiar with the geography of India. This is Gujarat, where the India-Pakistan border starts. That's a big starting point. And then this is also the place where the coastal region of India starts. We have about 7,500 kilometers of coastal line. So I started from Gujarat, went down all the way from Maharashtra, Goa, right up to Kanyakumari, Andhra, Orissa, West Bengal, or the Seven Sister States. I went to Myanmar, Burma from this side, stayed in the refugee camps with the refugees on both the sides, went to Bhutan, very beautiful country, and some of the most climate sensitive people, you find them there, including the government. Then went to Nepal, Bihar, and the northern part of India, the western part of India, and concluded my journey somewhere here. The message was very simple. In Hindi, what it is called as Jal, Jungle, Hawa, or Jameen Bachao. That's a Hindi. It means Jal is water, Jungle is forest, Hawa is air, and Jameen is our land, soil. So we have to save this. That is the message I was carrying. And I stayed with different activists. I stayed with different politicians. I stayed with people with all walks of life, and either gave them the message, interacted with them, learned from them, and it was overall a very enriching experience. And this started with a friend of mine, Rupesh, who had undertaken a similar journey, and he is the one who actually coined this term, change before climate change. And we thought, let it not stop with him. So I took the same torch and was running across the country with this message, with the hope that this becomes a movement and not just one single person's journey. These are the points which show it gives you a brief idea of what my journey was like. This is one of our senior politicians in India, Shashi Tharoor. I addressed multiple people. They're all activists in one of the cities in South India, which is called Trivandrum. This is somewhere in Uttar Pradesh. I met different armed forces people, paramilitary, military. This is in one of the temples in West Bengal. This is where our discussion starts. So during this journey, I was hosted by one of the army officers, a young army officer, and he was curious as to why am I traveling on a bicycle. So I told him about the mission, the change before climate change, what's happening to the climate, how it will impact us in long term, and so on and so forth. And his view was he was a very qualified engineer, a mechanical engineer from one of the reputed institutes of India. And then he passed some examinations and got into civil services, and then he was deputed as a senior army officer in this battalion. Of course, this is an AI generated image because I cannot share the real image because that's a defense setting. So that's the reason. Now, the reason I'm showing this image here is so the discussion was he said, see, if the development has to happen, the economy has to grow, then the climate has to be compromised. You have to blast the hills. You have to let the build dams in the river, maybe let some part of the river dry, divert them somewhere else. The forests have to go, and we have to find some solutions to compensate for all this. Say, for example, carbon capture, and whatever extra carbon which forests are absorbing, we have another technology for it. So innovations is the only solution. You cannot save the nature because economy is important. And that really got me thinking, and I was shocked. Somebody as qualified as him and somebody who is sitting at a senior position, these are his thoughts. And then, if you think really, that's exactly how most of the people think. And that's the reason we are heading towards this whole disaster of climate change. I'll just tell you a small story, and that will probably help you connect the title to the theme of our today's presentation, which is about consumption and production. So I was in one of the schools, as you can see in the photograph, all those little children, and I was speaking to them about climate change. And a small girl here, she, after my entire discussion was over, she came up to me and asked me a very innocent question. So I think this was this girl. Okay, she said, every birthday I force my parents to buy new clothes for me. Is it okay? So because my wardrobe is full of clothes, but still I want them to buy new clothes for me. Is it okay for the climate? And I think what we discussed about consumption must have probably got her thinking. And obviously, I said no, it is not, because you're buying what you don't really need. That is going to put extra pressure on or unnecessary pressure on the resources of our Mother Earth. And in long term, it is not going to be beneficial to you and harmful for everybody else. I think she understood this and promised in front of the whole class that now onwards, she on her every birthday will take her parents and her friends to some place and plant trees and ensure that they grow. So I was really touched by this whole conversation and by how the entire discussion unfolded. Now, this is what we do. We want to have all the things that we consume very beautifully packed. Only then it becomes appealing and drive me to consume the car, the food products, my house, everything. But if you really notice, at the back, this is exactly what's happening. To get this, we are doing this. I think I don't even need to explain. The picture speaks for itself. And the result is actually this. most of our cities, you could probably give those wonderful photographs of progress with the glass facades of some very tall buildings. But that's there's a small amount of area which is covered. Most of it is what you see in the picture. In fact, the town where I come from, this is a stream where during my school days, I used to go and swim. I would drink water from the stream. And unfortunately, now when I cross, now of course, the town where I used to stay, it was a very, very small town with a lot of paddy fields. And now, of course, it's developed. But this is how the stream where I would swim looks like. And during my journey, this is exactly what I've seen throughout the country, and I'm sure this is how it is in most of the world. So when I talk about Konkan, that's one of the areas in the coastal areas of Maharashtra or Kerala, one of the states in India, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Meghalaya, Jammu. Here, when I was in Meghalaya, one of the very beautiful states in terms of nature, natural beauty in India, that's northeastern region of India. This is one of the rivers which I came across. It looks blue, looks beautiful. But when I inquired, I saw that color blue, though it looks nice, visually appealing to the eyes, it's because there is the cement factory out there. It releases all its toxic chemicals out here. And then this further flows down into Bangladesh, into Assam. The river doesn't know any national boundaries or uh, politics. It just flows. I was just before, while I was preparing for this session, I came across this article, Breathless Pune, Part 3. After allowing unbridled construction, PMC, that is Pune Municipal Corporation. Pune is a city in India, just like Mumbai. It scrambles for damage control. So all these construction activities, which we see as economic growth, it contributes to the GDP, the gross domestic product of the country. It contributes to the per capita income of its citizens. It is living the city breathless. So, what are we doing wrong? And this is a scenario I have seen across India during my journey. So, I was in a place called as Tripura, which is one of the northeastern states, where I was in a place called as Roa Wildlife Sanctuary. It's a very small wildlife sanctuary in 1 square kilometer. That's probably one of the smallest wildlife sanctuaries in the world. And I was told while I was actually going swimming in this lake, you see this lake here? So we were swimming in this lake, then later we took a boat ride. And the person, the forest officer who was accompanying me there, he said about 10 years back, we would be scared because the lake was really very deep and the water was very high. But year on year, we see the water levels declining. And I was surprised, despite of so much of green cover, why is this happening? And then he explained all the green cover that you see, most of it is taken over by the rubber plantation. So they're all trees, but it's all monocropping. And as a result, you see these are rubber plants, the raw rubber juice being extracted and the final product being made. So it's contributing a lot to the economy of the state. But the water table is being depleted and the temperatures are rising. And in long term, this is going to be a disaster. And this is a story everywhere. Why? Because we measure our growth, our progress, our success with these economic indicators. GDP. GDP rises, we're doing great. Energy consumption. A country which is consuming more energy is more progressive. Per capita income. More money I have in my pocket, better it is. Production growth. More I'm producing, more industries. Better it is for the country. How much industrialized I am. What is the amount of disposable income I have? If you notice in all these indicators, all these indicators here, Where is nature? Nowhere. In our balance sheet, when I say I have made profit, natural resources do not feature anywhere. It is just the machinery, land, buildings, the amount of cash I have in my account that determines how profitable I am. I don't look back and ask, where did all this come from? How long is it going to last? What have I destroyed to get this? And because we don't ask these questions, we are heading towards the climate disaster. So, all these professionals who finance professionals, engineers, anyone, whatever they do, they can excel in their subjects. They cannot stop climate change. But the problem is, the poorly trained professionals will surely accelerate it. So, this is what I was attempting, or I'm attempting to fix by first me sensitizing myself about this issue and then taking these learnings into my class. If we don't, then these are the kind of conversations which we will be having. If you look at this cartoon, you probably have seen this before. Yes, the planet got destroyed, but in that beautiful moment, we created a lot of value for our stakeholders. What we define as value, is it really value? Do you really know what we're talking? The engineers, probably they're obsessed with wonderful engineering, but at what cost? This is where we will be. So, and this is not a distant future. This is already happening in most of the places. It's just that we choose not to look at it. And that is what prompted me to write this article. If the nature is not on the balance sheet, then the economic growth is a lie. And that's a LinkedIn article link which I have posted for your future reference. Now, to fix all this, we have come up with these 17 SDG goals. So, whatever business models we have to align them, or whatever actions we do, have to align with these 17 sustainable development goals. But the problem again is we see these goals in isolation. Anybody here who's probably a student or a professional, if you're doing, say, if you're a student, probably you're doing some projects, you would align your projects, or if you're doing some business, you probably would be highlighting that my business model aligns with, say, goal number 1, which is no poverty. And then I just keep chasing that goal. But am I questioning, to achieve that goal, what impact of my actions, my business model is having on goal number 13, which is climate action, goal number 14, say life below water, goal number 15, say life on land? What is happening there? Or maybe peace and justice. For example, to get rid of poverty, I probably have, I get into manufacturing arms and ammunition and start selling them illegally. Poverty reduced. But what's happening to goal number 16? So we cannot look at these goals in isolation. You have to look at it this way. All these SDG goals, they are interlinked. It's a very complex network. You have to understand the impact of one when you're trying to achieve one on all the other goals. And only when we are able to think in this fashion, we will be able to make some positive difference to this problem of climate change. Let me give you a small example of how this can probably be done. So I have a friend, his name is Rupesh, and in about, I think, 2013, there was a big disaster in one of the parts of Himalaya. There's a temple called as Kedarnath. A lot of devotees who are devoted to Shiva, they go there. Now, There was a big flood and it washed away that entire town. Fortunately, nothing happened to the temple, but the rest, everything got washed away. It took away all the tourists, all the pilgrims, all the shopkeepers, everything. Now, different teams by private business houses, governments were sent there for different reasons. Rupesh, friend of mine, who then was working at a very senior position in one of the corporates, Taj group of hotels, he was sent there to explore the business opportunity in that disaster prone area, how Taj Group can contribute to rebuild the place. So it's a noble intention. But when Rupesh went there and he saw all the dead bodies buried under the soil, under the stones, which had children, had rich, poor, everybody alike, you have a torn bag and bags of top brands all lying there. He realized somewhere he is responsible for this problem. It is the over tourism and the exploitative attitude of the tour managers which has led to this disaster. And he decided to quit the job. Instead of exploiting that as a business opportunity, he quit the senior position and started a small company called as Bakri Chap. For the people who understand Hindi, you might sound this funny. For the people who are only English speaking, Bakri is goat, Chap is brand. So goat, because goat is a cow of poor people. It gives you milk, uh, and maintaining a cow is expensive. Maintaining a goat is not so expensive. So it's one of the assets of poor people. Hence, Bakri Chap. Now, what he did was he built a whole sustainable tourism model. Now, what happens is when I go to these villages, say I go to a small village in Uttarakhand, which is one of the states in Himalayan states in India, on the northern region, what I do is I go from a city and I expect them to provide me with all the amenities that the city would give me, all the comforts that city would give me. And as a result, the villagers there who are hosting me are pressurized to move away from their culture, construct the dwellings from the brick and mortar material, give me pizzas and cokes and everything which I get in my city out there. As a result, the local culture gets destroyed. In the race to make money, the local people, they get cut from the roots of the culture which has evolved over the last few centuries, few thousand years. And it has evolved in a context. So to make quick buck, they start getting cut from their roots and they stop respecting their own culture. Now, if you want to mitigate climate change, one important thing is let's not standardize everything. Let's not adopt the model, Western model of consumption everywhere. So, what he did was he wanted to imbibe this concept of sustainable tourism amongst the villages. So, let us celebrate. He designed a model to celebrate everything, every aspect of the local culture. So when I from the city go there, I don't go there and expect what I get in the city. I go there to experience the local culture and celebrate it with them. So in this process, what happens is when I go there, I demand that I stay in the houses that they stay in. I live a life the way they live. I wear the clothes the ones they wear. I eat the food that they eat and I relish it. Now, and I pay for that. Now they know that if I do not retain, if I do not preserve, if I do not conserve my culture and everything around it, I'm not going to make money. So they start respecting what they have. And in fact, one of the examples, we had this festival called as Ghasiari. In this, I'll just show this video to you. So these are the women who are celebrating, they're dancing. This is a typical folk music in Uttarakhand. So here, what we did was, it's a very simple act of cutting grass. These women, they go out on the hills and cut grass, and then to feed their cows, to feed their cattle. We converted it into a full-blown event where, if you see, we had people coming from different parts of the world, not just country. We had people from Ukraine, we had people from different corners of India, we had people from USA, everywhere. And we had reporters from some of the leading newspapers of the country. And they were all here, women, and understand what they do. That gave them a lot of confidence. They liked it, that something as simple as grass cutting. There are reporters from leading newspapers from India. There are people from all over the world who are coming and covering this. So now they start respecting themselves, and that generates economy. So I think we are moving from a typical consumerist model to a very different sustainable model. Now, these are the kind of models we have to think for every sector, every kind of business, and only then will we be able to get out of this problem, mitigate this issue of climate change. Now, often while I interacted with different people during my journey, I was asked, this is too big a problem, and it's for the governments to solve. It's for the big corporations to solve. What can I do? This is what I would like to leave everyone with: these 5 R's. Reduce, recycle, reuse. Generally, everybody knows they're very common 3 R's of sustainability. Add 2 more to it: refuse and repurpose. So let's take away at least these 5 R's from this session and commit ourselves to implement this in our daily lives. So first R is refuse. Let us refuse every product or every service which I know is going to be harmful for this climate. I know that taking a car for long distance is going to generate a certain amount of carbon footprint. Let me take a public transport. Best is what I did, cycling across the country. Most of it was cycle, not everywhere you can, but yes. So as much as possible, refuse. During my entire journey, despite of my cycling in various cities in hot summers, I always refused plastic water bottles. I always had 3 steel bottles, thermoflask with me, which I kept refilling from different petrol pumps. I would go to people's houses, ask them to give me water. Sometimes they also gave me food. And of course, there are a lot of adventures and interesting stories from this journey, but maybe that's for some other time. So first is refuse. Second is repurpose. What you do is, if, say, for example, when I was cycling, I saw in one of the hill states, somebody had constructed an entire fence around the house with Coca-Cola bottles. So he had a bamboo frame and with Coke bottles attached to become a wall. So there are people who had constructed houses from the beer bottles. So what they're doing is they're taking something which was meant for something else, like to carry some kind of a liquid. That's a purpose. But I am using it to build a wall. I'm using it to fence my house. So I'm repurposing it. So let's repurpose. And of course, best is reduce. If I can't refuse, not everything can be repurposed, at least reduced. Live a life of minimalism. And of course, you can't, whatever comes, it leaks through the cracks and comes to you, recycle and reuse. So if we implement these 5 R's, I think we can do our bit to contribute to this cause at our level, and not just do it ourselves, but also take it to the people and influence the area in which we can. So this is an article. I'll share that link in case you're interested. So reduce, recycle, reuse, and regret. So after implementing these 5 R's, we probably feel good. Okay, I'm doing this. But we must know that refuse is always the best solution, because even if you recycle, finally that plastic is going to form microplastic and get into our bloodstream at some point. So by reducing, recycling, and reusing, we are just pushing the problem a little further, but not eliminating it completely. The only solution is refuse and a sustainable lifestyle. So this is what we must do. But of course, this is the most difficult thing to do, even all of us. So normally, going back to the same story, which the small debate I had with the army officer in his camp who was hosting me, he said innovation is the only way we can mitigate climate change, because for the economic development to happen, the climate has to go and we have no choice. But no amount of innovation can solve this problem. The only solution is sustainable consumption choices. And of course, when you and me as consumers make these sustainable consumption choices, the sustainable production methods will definitely follow. So minimalistic lifestyle, sustainable lifestyle is the only way to go. I was watching this very beautiful movie on YouTube. It's called as The Weeping Camel. I would advise all of you to watch it. It's free there on YouTube, The Weeping Camel. And this is a still from that movie, where at some point it says that we have to remember that we are not the last generation on the earth. So let's not consume in a fashion that, okay, I am the only person here and let me finish everything, consume everything now, and that's it. It's over. So that's the message which I was cycling with. Change before climate change. We as human beings, we have to change before the climate changes. We have to change our habits. And this inspired from 2 quotes from Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, one of our leaders of India, the freedom fighters. And he said, Earth has enough to support every person's need, but not even a single earth. In fact, I will go further, not multiple infinite earths are sufficient to support even a single person's greed. So we have all enough to support everyone's need, but not even a single person's greed, because greed has no bounds. So I think we should stop being greedy, stop consuming like greedy people, and that's the only solution we can solve the climate change issue. Thank you.